welcome to another episode of TRP. On this week's episode, I am sandwiched between Lord Matthew and Ruben.
Yay!
Ruben loves a good sandwich. We're going to quickly, Matt and I have to apologize for a couple errors last week. One, Hunter Pence was not still with the Giants. He was no longer a Giant at the end of last season, and he actually this week signed with the Texas Rangers on a minor league deal. We were talking about outfielders. Also, the word I could not think of was the waiver trade deadline, which subsequently follows the non-waiver deadline, which ends July 31st. That was a phrase I could not recall. Also, one more error. I keep seeing these top 10 Yankee fans to follow on Twitter. It is an error to not have me. I would just like to point that out to everyone else and have been on Twitter, which has actually increased my follows. So I do appreciate that. Keep me in your thoughts and follows and mentions and carrier pigeons and any other medium that you can use to discuss things and goings on.
They still have carrier pigeons?
I do not know, Matt, if they still have carrier pigeons, but...
in honor of Game of Thrones, let's do it. Bring it back.
Those are ravens. Those are ravens.
They're both dirty birds. Is that right, Baltimore? What do you have to... No?
No.
I make puns and references. That's typically what happens on this show. Interesting show this week, kind of all over the place. Last week, Matt and I mentioned the Realmuto possibility of JT going to
Nice.
the Philadelphia Phillies, which he did. CBS Sports had reported that, and I mean it happened in every outlet's talking about it because it's done, but the Marlins got Sixto Sanchez, Jorge Alfaro, and Will Stewart. Stewart and Sanchez were pitching prospects, Alfaro a catcher. Sixto was actually the 35th best MLB-ranked prospect. People like that he throws an easy 100-mile-an-hour fastball. He's got a very tight slider. Some shoulder issues, kind of red flags, might end up being in the bullpen at some point. The Marlins also got $250,000 in international slot money. For Alfaro, he was called up last year. He hit .262, hit 10 bombs. Ruben, you and I talked about the catching market ad nauseum. How are you feeling about what the Marlins got and what the Phillies had to give up?
It's less than what the Marlins were asking for previously.
We will get into that in a minute.
Okay, so we're not going to start off with that.
No.
So they lessened their demand. So it's like asking a girl to lower her standards on Valentine's Day. However, they didn't get as much as what they were, pie in the sky sort of mentality that they had. But it's still a decent haul for an injury-prone catcher. And I think you and I discussed this 4 or 5 weeks ago. Realmuto's good. He's no Mike Piazza in his prime. He's no Johnny
Wilson
Bench.
Contreras.
Yeah. He's a marginal is not the right word, but in comparison to a superstar catcher, he's marginal. In comparison, not nowadays. It's not a particularly strong position.
He's still arguably the best catcher in Major League Baseball right now.
Sure. He's arguably at a 280 career clip with, an average of, 20-plus homer kind of like pop. It's a good move for the Phillies because they're trying to win now. I don't think they have enough unless they get one of the other two people that we're going to talk about later that we've talked about every week.
That everyone talks about every second of the day.
Jeez. I heard. Well, we'll get there later.
Yeah, we're gonna get there. We're laying down the breadcrumbs to follow.
Yes.
And I will say, kind of within what we've been talking about, there was that alleged three-way deal that we talked about, Ruben, you and I, and Matt and I. We've talked about where the Mets were going to get Realmuto, the Yankees were going to get Syndergaard, but apparently the reason that really didn't go through, and Ken Rosenthal was reporting this, the Marlins wanted Miguel Andujar from the Yankees and Gary Sanchez, and that was, as you just mentioned, sort of the pie in the sky offerings. I mean, to get. I mean, I kind of get the Yankees and Mets trying to balance out because of the quality of pitching of Syndergaard. But to give up Andujar, who, and this is the bad take possibly, or the bitter take. Andujar should have been the MLB Rookie of the Year, the AL Rookie of the Year. I don't care what anyone says. I'm sure the novelty act of the two-way of Ohtani, who missed the bulk of the season, when Miggy was out there every day, but that's maybe Yankee bias. And Sanchez, who he did have a down year, but he also is arguably one of the best catchers in the game.
Well, Luis Mendoza called. He said that he had a bad year.
Yeah, that's what happened. But we'll get your Mets take in a minute. But Matt, with all this Realmuto talk and what was speculative to happen versus what did, what do you kind of take from that?
Well, I feel like when you're gonna offer up a star player or a fringe star player, whatever you want to call them, on the trading block, you're going to always ask for more up front to see who's going to bite on it. I mean, you're not going to try to aim low when you're trading somebody. You're going to try to get as much as possible. So I can see why they would kind of go for everything on that first trade attempt. Now, a haul like that is probably not going to happen, but you start there and work your way back.
You go for broke.
Yeah, so... I mean, it's not. I mean, I think it turns the NL East into. I mean, not that the Marlins are going to compete, but I think it's firmly a 3-team race at this point. As much as the Mets are going to try their best this year.
Wow.
As much as they're going to try their best.
Shots fired.
I think it's going to be the Braves, the Nats, and the Phillies kind of duking it out for the entire year.
I don't think the Nats are going to do much, but that's.
If they re-sign one of those two players that we're going to talk about, maybe. But.
Now, Ruben, this proposed trade, this pie in the sky trade, this well-wishing trade affects you and I the most, even though it's not going to happen, didn't happen. Obviously, we know my thoughts on it, but for the Mets to just get Realmuto and to have to give up Thor to the Yankees of all teams, right? Boo hiss from the redheaded stepchild of New York, and their fan base.
Yeah, so here's the interesting thing about that proposed trade. I think that everybody, with the exception of Sanchez, is more valuable individually than Realmuto. I think Thor has more value than Realmuto, especially if he's healthy, and he should be peaking. Then I think Andujar has more value as well. So the Marlins were asking for Andujar and hey, give us a replacement for the catcher we're giving up as well, who has all-star potential. Let's see if he can get it back together. It's absurd, but at the same time, Matt has a good point. You shoot high, and I actually think that Van Wagenen was dropping the name of Thor and what they would be willing to give up for him, honestly, to probably entice people to say they're going to give up Thor for that. Hey, we'll give you this, and this for Thor. So I don't think he had any intention whatsoever, but it's kind of you create a false equivalency, a false market.
Well, GMs do it all the time to gauge what they can get for certain players. It doesn't mean that they're going to give those players up.
Sure.
But they want to know what the market value, like you just said, to establish some kind of market value. And it helps them later in the year, too, in June and July, when they are trying to make serious trades, to know, all right, if I don't want to give up so-and-so, but... I kind of know what I can expect to get.
Well, I see. Now, here's where it works when you're offering a Thor and you don't think you're getting as much back for other people to pique their interest. It doesn't work when you're Derek Jeter and you're Googling how to negotiate before you actually make a request, because you don't have nobody's gonna step up to the plate.
The intangibles, Ruben. The intangibles.
Wait,
he's beloved in New York, though.
He'll dive into the stands for you. Now, oh my gosh, can you imagine any GM saying, "Oh, I can't wait to deal with the Marlins" at that point? And that's why the price was never as high. They still got a good haul, though.
They did. I mean, it's fair. But going on deals and what's fair or not fair, I will not butcher his name this week. Kyler Murray did choose. Yeah, we have a glass board in here, and I made sure to underline the R in his name 30,000 times. Kyler did choose football over baseball, but there's some interesting ramifications on that. And the first, we'll talk about the business aspect of it, and then talk about how his agent is just going to absolutely sandbag him. But Murray was paid $4.66 million as a signing bonus when the A's selected him. Now, that money, as kind of outlined by Jeff Passan from ESPN, is paid gradually. So he was only paid about $1.5 million of that. He's going to have to pay back $1.29 million since he is not going to obviously join the Oakland Athletics. And I get it, as long as he gets picked in a mid-round, he's going to make some substantial money. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, and I guess the way to phrase it, is the short-term money and fame in the NFL worth potentially the long-term money and success you could maybe have had in Major League Baseball? Obviously, this being a baseball podcast, I'm being kinder and gentler to MLB, who really, if you think about it, they lost out big time on this because this is somebody who the NFL is vying for, and if you could steal that star away, it's a big coup for Major League Baseball. They were willing to massage the rules so he could have been offered a Major League Baseball contract, which would change the game. And it's still something that I think, you and I talked about.
Next couple of years, possibly.
Yeah, that's going to possibly happen anyway. I'll start it off, with Matt. What do you see out of a under 5'10" quarterback going into the NFL, hoping to, allegedly football's his love, not baseball, and if that's true, more power to him. But do you see this as really a labor of love, so to speak, or is this just a guy trying to do a cash grab?
I think I saw an article the other day talking about Kyler Murray that said that his love of football outweighed baseball's love of him. I feel like his passion for the sport of football is much greater than it is for baseball, and I think baseball would have been a nice coup for them. I don't think they tried overly hard to grab him away or anything like that. I don't know how good he would be in baseball, honestly. I think he's going to get more publicity in football. He's going to be more well known in the football realm, especially if he starts for some, like middling team or something. Sure. He probably won't get paid as much long term. He'll probably have a shorter football career than he would a baseball career. But I think, if his passion's in football, I think he would rather obviously do that. It sounds like that's what he's doing.
Ruben, what are your thoughts?
Well, we talked about it 2 weeks ago. Let's say the passions are equal. Let's make a theoretical here.
All right.
Equal passion for both. And you're not going to pull a Deion Sanders, and you're not going to,
Bo Jackson.
midweek. No. Well, Bo committed to one, and then he would go to the other. Like there was a time frame. Deion actually tried to do both at the same time in the same week, which Tim McCarver was a big fan of. But nevertheless, let's say it's equal passion for both. We talked about it 2 weeks ago. I think you've got to go to the football route first because it's so much more taxing on your body that you have to be at your physical absolute best. And it would be difficult to be away from baseball and come back to football whenever the wears and tears of baseball as well get to you, slow you down a little bit. If the passion is equal, go at your absolute best, pursue the football, and you're a star because you're the Heisman Trophy winner. I was about to say the Cy Young winner. So if he was going to be a Cy Young winner, I would probably say choose baseball.
Wrong position for him, though.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not
doing that. And I actually heard that his arm is better in football than it is in baseball. Isn't it funny how that works out?
Well, it's a different motion.
It's different motions, different sport. So I'm going to now go to the second half of what we're talking about regarding Kyler Murray. And it's his agent, Eric Burkhardt, who was on Johnny Manziel's podcast. I did not know Johnny Manziel had a podcast, but I guess you got to do something, right?
Yeah.
We all do. He said to the people who are dismissive of Kyler being a successful NFL quarterback, because keep in mind, he's like 5'8", 5'9" on a good day, and that's not typically the recipe for a successful NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
So Eric said that the people kind of, downplaying his client's skills were dinosaurs and losers with that mentality.
Yeah.
Do you feel and we're sticking historically,
Sure.
and that height of a quarterback does not typically translate to success. No one's saying he's not going to.
Yeah.
But if you're the representative and the mouthpiece of a player, and I know we're in the age of Facebook and Twitter, obviously we use those things ourselves. If you're the agent, if you're the representative of your client, and I get what he's trying to do, he wants to change the mindset, he wants to be positive for his client. But going on Johnny Manziel's podcast and labeling people like that, do you feel that that's bringing an unwanted attention to a guy that's already getting a lot of attention because of his decision making?
No, I think he's doing his job. You've got to change the perception, and I'll give you a brief example. this football related. Doug Flutie did not go immediately into the NFL because he was a small quarterback. Doug Flutie was a Heisman Trophy winner who was known for decision making and accuracy. So what does he do? He goes to the CFL. And what does he do? He wins multiple championships and I think a couple MVPs. Sorry, I'm not big on my CFL stats here. But I know he did that. Then he goes back to the NFL, becomes a backup quarterback. The regular quarterback goes down. He goes in place, and they start winning with him because of decision making and accuracy. So if you've got to stand up for your client that way.
You do, but and Matt, maybe I'll have you on this half of this question. Do you not feel that there's better ways to stand up for your client than sort of, insulting the people covering him and just the people he's going to interact with?
I mean, you want to highlight his skill set, and I was actually going to bring up Doug Flutie as well as one of the good short quarterbacks. I think in the NFL these days you have essentially two types of successful quarterbacks. You have the good decision making, accurate quarterbacks, and then you have the very mobile quarterbacks who might not be as accurate, but they can run for 1,000 yards a year.
Yeah.
Those types of players tend to have a much shorter career. They tend to kind of fizzle out. You see, like RG3 didn't really do much after those first couple of years. A lot of those mobile quarterbacks, they have a couple good years, then they're done.
But hopefully a baseball player knows how to slide.
Also true. That is true. But no, I think you have to kind of, if there's a certain mindset in place for your client, for a specific person that you're trying to promote, I think you have to kind of either accentuate his skill set, which I think he's doing, and also try to steer that conversation away and say, hey, he's built for success despite the the limitations or whatever people are saying against him, and just kind of just let him kind of talk the talk at that point.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, in my opinion, and I'm sure there's a more right answer and maybe a more wrong answer, who knows. But for me, I was never a super successful agent or anything. I do understand, and my master's degree is in sports business. I've been an agent. I've been around agents. I don't know, for me, that I would want to bring negative attention. And I do get that he's bringing the negative attention on himself, which is maybe distracting from criticisms to Kyler, which is good. It's what you want. But I just think there's better ways to go about it. And, like just mentioning, his skill set will translate, let's talk about it on the field. Watch what he does, watch what he's capable of doing. It makes his critics look like the bad guys. You don't want his agent to look necessarily like the bad guy. And it's good and bad because it is diverting any kind of negative attention away from Kyler, but it's also kind of inviting more of a circus and more speculation, like, oh, your agent does this, your agent does that, which again, that's part of the game. It's good. But in terms of just public relations, when people are unsure of what you're doing, and then your agent's going on Johnny Manziel's podcast and verbally being combative to those people, that's egging people on. And I think it's good to draw attention away from criticism, but maybe just not in that manner, if that makes sense.
There's two things that come to mind immediately. One is Tom Brady going up to Robert Kraft when he drafted him, 5th, 6th round? And saying, this is the best decision you've ever made or you're ever going to make, which may or may not have been a Nostradamus.
But that's bravado. It's not negative.
Sure. But what if his agent is reflecting the confidence that Kyler Murray is exhibiting himself?
That's not reflecting confidence. Insulting people is not confidence, per se.
Or are you talking about the dinosaur comment?
Calling people dinosaurs and losers.
Oh, but we're talking about... We weren't talking about you?
No, we're not talking about me. I am not a dinosaur. Maybe a T-Rex. Who knows? But it's an interesting topic, and I'm sure we're going to get more sound bites and things going on in the future. Now that he's in football's realm, I guess Bon Voyage to our mentions of him. But
did you mention what happens to his signing bonus from the A's? Did you talk about that?
To pay it back.
He has to pay the bulk of it back. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because
he's not playing. So.
Yeah, no, I just don't know what the process is.
Well, the A's do keep his rights. I mean, it's the same thing. Yeah. Russell Wilson was drafted.
The Mariners,
Russell Wilson was drafted by the Colorado Rockies.
Oh, I thought it was the Mariners.
Nah, I believe it was the Rockies, and then he went to Texas, and then he was traded to the Yankees. He still shows up. He's going to show up again for spring training for the Yankees. He took in a batter too. I think he struck out, but yeah, they retain the rights, the baseball rights. Yeah. So if and when he does want to go back to baseball, he is in Oakland A, unless traded. But just kind of sticking with the West Coast theme, our friends in San Diego, and I know this is what we were alluding to earlier with Manny Harper talk. We talked about their interest in Harper as a marketing and sort of a marquee attraction possibly for their team, and they hadn't talked about Manny Machado as well. But Kevin Acee from the San Diego Union Tribune, it's a good mouthful, say that 20 times fast, said that the Padres met again with Manny earlier this week. That the GM, AJ Preller, was meeting with Manny and the missus. And, the Padres, I don't think getting Manny or Harper or both necessarily changes their lot in the NL West. Rubes, what do you get?
Send them out west. Send them both out west. My goodness, what a great coup for the soon to be first place New York Mets. Well, not after one game,
I say one game doesn't count.
Hey!
One game doesn't count.
Now, if you're listen, do I understand it from a player's point of view? No, we talked about it because it's a pitcher's park too. It's where home runs go to die, unless you're Bartolo Colon. However, if you're a Padres fan, you got to start somewhere. What a great way to ingratiate yourself to your fan base and produce interest. So yeah, that'd be a great coup for them. If you're Manny, I mean, is it all about the money? You're damn right.
Absolutely. At this point, it seems that way until he signs somewhere.
Yep.
I don't know, because if he takes less money to go play for the Yankees, and I'm not trying to be well-wishing Yankee fan, I do still, there's a part of me that does think that he's not taking an offer because he's still hoping maybe the Yankees get in there.
Yeah.
I think that because he wants to, I can't believe he wouldn't want to win a championship. And if he signs in San Diego, I'm not saying at the back end of that deal he's not going to, but the Padres are not competing for the next couple of years. They're not. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be dismissive of Preller and company, but Matt, to you, is this a sound move or is this just purely stunt on the Padres' part?
It would be a good move for the Padres for sure. I just don't think Manny's going to do it, honestly. I mean, if the money's that good and that's all he's concerned with, by all means, go sign with the Padres. But like he said, he's not going to be competing. He's coming from Baltimore, where they barely did anything. He played in the playoffs with the Dodgers. He had a good run there. Like, why would he not want to continue doing that, I would think. And the same with Harper, because the Harper's already had some sustained success. He's already very beloved in Washington, so it's not like going to a different fan base is going to, improve his standing in the baseball world or anything like that. I agree that I think it would be awesome if San Diego got them because, one, they would obviously have more fans come to the game. There'd be more people going. And two, you negate two superstars on a team that's not going to do anything and just eliminate them from the equation altogether.
Absolutely. Get them out of the NL East. Let's go.
Oh, I'm sandwiched between, and I keep saying sandwich, apparently I'm hungry. I'm sitting between two NL fans, so I forgot my audience here. But back to my audience, the last thing we want to talk about today, recent news because it just happened. Luis Severino signed an extension with the Yankees, according to Jeff Passan from ESPN. 4-year, $40 million deal, option for a fifth year, and that option looks like it's $15 million with a $2.75 million buyout. So, having seen Severino pitch, I think that's great. I mean, I think the guy, as he keeps going, is gonna get paid. He's I believe he's Super 2 status. He's over 2 years. You're free agent eligible after 6 years of MLB service, so it's essentially just taking him, to that point, locking up his years. Severino is an ace at best, and maybe a 2 or a 3 at worst. So that type of money for him, in my opinion, is great. He's a stud young talent, and I like that the Yankees are starting to lock up young players, and I hope they continue that trend, because typically, the Yankees like to do year to year, and then maybe, in a final year or something, offer big money. So if they're starting to lock up players earlier and earlier, I love that, and I'd like to see that continue, with Didi. Hopefully he comes back from surgery doing well. I'd like to see that with Judge especially.
We're not letting him go.
No, the Judge is not going anywhere between his ability as a player and then the marketing and everything around him. But if you're a Yankees fan, that has to be just a great warming sign. You could talk about, Hal isn't his father and this and that and being cheap because we didn't get Machado or Harper this second. But if you're investing money in the team and the Yankees are still a top payroll team, it does good to see. I'm not saying that you shouldn't still get the superstars and stuff because you're not just because you're expected to, but obviously if you have the financial might, you want to flex it. You don't want to be the Mets and just be an afterthought and people wondering what you're doing with your money. But Ruben, as my crosstown rival, what are your thoughts on locking up a young ace?
He's 24 years old. He's got 230 strikeouts and 220 strikeouts in the last 2 years individually. He's giving you almost 200 innings pitched. He's still learning how to pitch. It's a great coup for the Yankees. Not that the Mets have any sort of young-ish pitchers under team control that are great that haven't been signed yet for an extension. Jeez, don't get me started.
That is why I went to this route. Matt, we've seen some great young pitching come through the Cubs over the years.
Really?
Well, maybe not.
Not recently.
Not recently.
There's that Mark Pryor guy.
I was thinking of Pryor, Maddox.
And then there's that Kerry Wood guy. They're still around, right?
They were good in 15 years ago.
Oh.
That's more what I was alluding to. But the point being, you had seen young talented pitchers come through your team. Maybe not in recent years, but come through your team. What are your thoughts, echoing Ruben and myself?
Well, as the resident Cubs fan, the closest thing that we have to a young stud pitcher is Kyle Hendricks, and he's 26, and I guarantee he's not doing as well as Luis Severino is. So, for that kind of money, you see the market for pitchers nowadays. If he keeps developing like that, he's going to make bank. 5 years from now, assuming the Yankees pick up that 5th-year option.
I don't see any reason they wouldn't.
Yeah, 4 years. Was it 40? You said $40 million a year.
Yep.
That's
not a year.
Or $40 million for 4 years.
They're not giving him that Harper money.
I don't think Harper's getting $40 million a year, but $40 million for 4 years. That is a lot for, it's a good amount of money for someone basically coming into their prime. There's no reason to think he's not going to continue that pace that he's doing. You've locked up that one or two pitcher for the next 4 or 5 years and just build around that. I think it's a no-brainer.
And pitching's a premium in the league. It's hard to lock down talented pitching talent. Look at me. No, it's tough to lock down quality starters, and that's a big thing in the league. And I know people say the role of a starter is diminishing because we were more reliant on bullpens. But even if a guy goes 5 or 6 innings and he's putting up zeros on the scoreboard and he's putting up 2 or 3 strikeouts an inning, which Severino is capable of doing, it's worth having it. It's definitely something you want to see, and I'm a big fan of Severino, so I love the move. On that note, hopefully I have more positive Yankee notes as the season starts progressing, with a lot of free agents still hopefully out there on the board.
So this time next week, when we do this again, do we have homes for Bryce and Manny?
No.
I don't think we have a home for Bryce. I don't think we have a home for Manny. I do not think, and I'm obviously committing myself to the interwebs holding me accountable here. I don't think that they sign for another 2 or 3 weeks, and it's pitchers and catchers just reported.
So who caves in first? Do they cave in on their demands, or does some unknown player say, "Geez, we can step into this. We can get this done"?
I think that, because that's what happened with, because you think of, I just think of Arrieta, where he was looking for buku money, didn't get it, and then it just progressed, and the Phillies like, all right, well we'll grab him, and he did all right. So,
but the thing that's weird to me, and I think it depends on the player, is because I really don't believe that Manny wants to go to Nowheresville, basically. Because
San Diego's got some good stuff there, right?
San Diego, and I don't mean Nowheresville in terms of locality.
Well, yeah.
I mean in terms of a
last place team.
Because I could see, the White Sox are interested, the Padres are interested. shoot, maybe Derek Jeter's like, I want to get Manny after dumping every great player I've had the past 2 years to try and put butts into seats in Florida because Manny's from Florida. So I don't know. I really don't know. It depends how much the dollar, matters because, I could see Harper going to the Giants, since he's a West Coast guy. I think the reason both of these guys are unsigned, and I'm not trying to be arrogant or I'm not trying to be Yankee-centric, but maybe the two go hand in hand. I think both of those guys really want to be Yankees. Machado idolized Alex Rodriguez, but plays short. He wouldn't for the Yankees, but Alex also successfully moved to third.
So he's going to Seattle then?
That's what I was going to say.
No, he was a
Texas.
He was a Yankee. He was a big Yankees fan. And then the reason Bryce Harper wears 34 is 3 + 4 = 7. Mickey Mantle, Harper's a huge Yankees fan as well.
Is that why he's wearing 34?
That is. That is legitimately why he wears.
Fan. Okay.
That is legitimately why he wears 34. 3 + 4 = 7.
I thought he was a fan of the movie.
You thought he was a fan of the movie?
7.
Of 7?
Yeah.
He's gonna put your head in a box. But no, it's just. I'm curious. I think the Yankees, for whatever reason, even though we desperately need a left-handed bat, are more enamored with Machado than they are Harper. I think there are teams that are just waiting for them to fall into their laps and see what happens. I would be surprised if the Yankees don't end up with one of them, and I honestly think Harper ends up going back to the Nationals. I think the two mean a lot to each other, potentially. So, I don't know.
Oh, he's good friends with Chris Bryant. Just,
are the Cubs going to spend money?
They're not.
They're not going to spend money. Are they going to pay him in bubble gum?
We bought two middling relievers, I think, is all we've done this offseason.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, maybe the Marlins will spend big now and get him long term. They just signed Sergio Romo.
They just lost a catcher. Does he play catcher?
No. Oh yeah, they got the catcher. They got a catcher back from the Phillies. That was one of the players. So we're talking about Jorge Alfaro. But I think it's a good stopping point. We'll see. We'll continue Manny and Harper watch next week, and hopefully that does actually happen. And the forever of baseball is back. The forever of baseball is back. Pitchers and catchers reporting. The position players, some of them are showing up early to get their practice in. Football's over, so it's a good time of year again to be a baseball fan. So thank everybody for listening. Like I mentioned earlier, got some new Twitter followers. I'm going to throw out some thank yous and mentions on the YouTube edition of the podcast, just because the visual component is probably pretty good versus just speech. No?
Sure.
Sure, why not? And until next week, we thank you and always be a fan.